Welcome to Freelance Sucks. Here we discuss the dark side of freelancing about which nobody usually talks out loud. In this show, we speak with experienced freelancers, and I'm sure listening to their stories helps you prepare for freelancers' challenges. My name is Yuri, I'm a community builder at Code Control and 9am.works, and my guest is Elaine Pofeldt, a freelance writer, journalist, editor, ghostwriter, and speaker with over 20 years of professional experience who specializes in entrepreneurship, freelance success, and careers, and whose work has appeared in Fortune, Money, Forbes, and many others. So, welcome, Elaine.
Thank you so much, Yuri. It's great to be here and great to have survived the dark side of freelancing for so many years.
What doesn't kill us makes us stronger, maybe? So, just
Exactly,
like that.
exactly. At this point, you and I should be Hercules, right?
Exactly. You never know. You never know. But what is the most challenging part for you of being a freelancer?
I think the most challenging part is dealing with the uncertainty of it. And I think this is probably the most challenging part for everyone. The world is changing very fast, and that means businesses are changing very fast. And those are the people who hire us. So it's adapting to constant change. And, when you're feeling great and you're in an optimistic mood, you're ready to meet the challenge. But sometimes other things are going on in your life, and you still have to meet that challenge. And that's one of the hard parts.
How do you personally meet and approach this challenge of uncertainty?
I think you have to build a base of stability in your life. I learned this. I went freelance in 2007, and I learned this since then. Raising four children as a freelancer, you need to have some financial stability. So no matter how little you're making, and in the beginning, when you're freelancing, you're probably not making very much. It builds up over time. You still need to build some savings. That might mean you start the freelance business on the side while you're still working in a job, or you're doing some sort of side hustle to support the freelancing. You need to live modestly compared to your corporate friends for at least a while. And you need to have a support network. And that could be people on podcasts that you listen to that keep you inspired. It could be friends you call up when you're trying to deal with a difficult client situation. But you need support. You cannot do it alone, or else you'll peter out over time.
What is your personal approach? How do you connect with those people?
I think I'm a naturally friendly person. So I'm curious about people. And often when I'm working with them, I'll just ask them how things are going for them, or how is their son, or whatever I know about them, because I'm genuinely interested. And through those little conversations and not rushing off the phone all the time or rushing off the Zoom call, I get to know people. And I'm lucky that I am a reporter and I have opportunities to interview people. So I also get to know them through the actual work because they're telling me their stories. And I have an incredible memory for people's stories. People are often surprised at how much I remember from a conversation 15 years ago. And I think it's just because I genuinely like people. So that's how I do it. Social media has really been my friend in that respect. Like you and I came together because you tagged me on a post you did about books that you had read that were meaningful to you. And I try to stay active without having it take over my life. So I spend about half an hour a day on different social media. And I do try to connect with people all over the world because it expands my horizons and I learn so much.
And I feel like over the years, you connect with more and more and more and more people. But how do you keep them in your life? How do you maintain those relationships that you've started?
Part of it is always thinking about opportunities where you can help them, because we're all part of a community, and I'm very invested in other people succeeding at this thing too, because we all help each other. There's only so much work that any one freelancer can do at one time, right? So we can't hoard all the work that's out there. So it's better to spread it around and help other people. And sometimes I'll just see something like a grant that might help somebody, or an opportunity for something that's out of my skill set, and refer it to them. That's an easy way to do it. Or if I'm doing a panel discussion and one of the people I've worked with would really be a great panelist, keeping in mind their expertise helps me to bring opportunities to them. So it's about trying to give back where you can, but in a meaningful way that really helps them in their area of expertise and helps them make their business stronger.
What is the most time-consuming thing you must deal with as a freelancer except for professional work itself?
Some of these things are becoming less time consuming, interestingly. I mean, it used to be dealing with my notes from my reporting and that sort of thing. But now I started using different tools like ChatGPT and Gemini to clean them up. And if I'm going to write an article, I'll just say, please summarize the bullet points from this. So if I'm going through reams and reams of notes that I've done over a couple of weeks, I can quickly go back to it. I still have to go through them, but it's in a much more efficient way. So that was something that was putting me behind. And as a ghostwriter, I started using tools like Fathom, where I have records of the conversations I have with the different clients. So I don't have to go through my own messy notes, that you're taking down, typing away like a maniac. They're nice and clean. So if I have 50 conversations with them, say I'm working with them over a year, and there literally are at least 50 conversations, I could see the summary of what we talked about. So I would say the most time consuming part of it has gone away. The other part of it has been bookkeeping, which I really don't know double entry accounting. And I realize I'm not going to learn it. It's not my skill set. So I outsourced that and I got rid of that. And it cost me a couple of $100s a month, but it's well worth it because I'd be sitting in on a beautiful sunny April day, slogging through QuickBooks and ready to kill myself. Now I don't have to do that anymore. And I could spend the time having fun and relaxing or working on something much more meaningful to me.
Are there any other aspects of your professional work that you are delegating?
Well, yes, I do. I delegate some research. My children work in my business, and I have two daughters who are twins who are 21, and another one who is 18. Then my son is 14, and my son does a lot of the web projects, and he acts as my IT guy. He's a gamer, and he knows all about that stuff. So often people who work with me, he'll hop on and help us with something. He helps some of my clients too. I have one daughter who's good at social media, and she'll help with some of the social media. The other two daughters are very good in math. So in my book, Tiny Business, Big Money, we did a lot of number crunching to analyze the businesses that had the most money left over after making payroll, the tiny businesses with less than 20 employees, but generally less than 5. My two daughters helped me with that. They were critical in programming the Excel spreadsheets. We had like 7 batches of data from the US government. I would have never been able to go through it myself. So I'm lucky that they've been interested in being a part of it. And so that's how I outsource. But I do, I have an accountant. Occasionally, I'll need a lawyer for legal documents or things like that. I have a literary agent for my books, so she handles the negotiations with the publishers and rights, like foreign rights to the books. So you do need a team. My team is very fluid, but it helps a lot. And I think you're raising a good point that whether you have employees or other types of helpers, it could be volunteers like your mother is helping you in the business or whatever. We can't do it all alone, and
Yeah.
that's one of the myths that people will call upon when they try to discredit freelance businesses or one person businesses, saying it's selfish, you're just in a little silo by yourself. We're all connected. Everybody in the universe is connected to other people. And it's impossible to run a business without connection in some way or help coming from other people. It could be coming from podcasters that you're listening to. They may not be paid helpers, but they're certainly helping you grow your business.
I feel like sometimes even when freelancers are working with other freelancers, they're still growing their personal business, but they also like helping other freelancers. And you don't always have to be an expert in everything because it's just impossible. But when you are combining your powers, you can go much farther, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. And it's amazing. You and I were talking before we came on about how much you can learn from your peers. I mean, sometimes just like a little tool, like I learned about Fathom from Fei Wu, who's a podcaster, and I had been on her podcast and she showed it to me. And I thought, wow, this is a game changer. And every single client that I've worked with, who I've used it with, has started using it in their business. And it's those little things that can give you back hours every week and free you up to do what you do best. So that's why it's important to not be rushed all the time. I think we're also rushed these days, but taking a little extra time to chit chat with people, it's not just small talk, it's really helping you grow.
Yeah, I just love those small conversations when you are having. That's why I'm always like, when we jump on a podcast, I always love to talk before the podcast, in between the podcast, after the podcast, because that's exactly how you build those human connections. When you are just going, just opening up your inner curiosity and like being genuinely interested in what other people have to share with you and what you can share with them. Because I've had so many moments when just random phrase just changed everything. It's funny, I think one of the guests on this podcast, he told like, "Oh, I wish I would create a professional podcast." And I was like, "Oh, okay, nice." Then I started Community ROI, where I started talking about how to connect community goals with business goals, just because something I've heard from a person on this podcast. And I was like, just some thoughts that people are sharing with you can totally literally change your life, but you have to be able to listen to them.
Absolutely. It's amazing because some ideas will never occur to us unless it's in conversation. We're catalysts for each other, and it's very powerful when creative people come together. That's why I'm such a big fan of podcasts, because these dialogues open up a lot of new avenues for exploration and keep our businesses interesting. Because let's face it, sometimes we're doing bread and butter work. It's boring. We're doing it to pay the bills. We're slogging through. We're juggling multiple projects. We're stressed out. We have a difficult client. And the magic of coming together and talking about interesting ideas and things that really get us going and let us see our bigger potential as human beings is so incredible. I mean, that's why we're doing this thing instead of having some sort of quote unquote steady job. Not that there really are any anymore, but the illusions of security. We're living in freedom, but in responsibility to kind of eat what we kill. That's the magic part of it, where we can say it's worth it to have this conversation and to dream and to come up with innovation and new ideas and help each other execute on the ideas. And that's, where podcasters are so important.
What is the most nerve-wracking thing you must deal with as a freelancer?
That's a good question. Well, one thing that's nerve-wracking, I think, is sometimes you'll have an unstable client. They may go dark on you. You're working away, and then all of a sudden you don't hear from them, and you wonder what's going on with them. Did they go bankrupt? Are they having a problem? Are they, you don't really know, and you felt things were going along smoothly. And I think the answer to that is really developing your intuition. There's sort of a pattern matching where you see certain patterns of behavior and learn to head them off at the pass, in terms of being much more direct and communicative about things early, or voicing things that you sense that the person might be hesitant to say, and learning how to have those diplomatic conversations. That took me a long time. You'd sort of be earlier in my career, if something was going on like that, where there was sort of mysterious behavior by a client, I would call another freelancing friend and say, "Hey, can I run this past you? What do you think is going on here?" And sometimes their take on it would be different. It was just my mood that day. I was reading it the wrong way. But other times, I wasn't. And then I learned to trust my gut. So part of being a freelancer is really honing in on those gut instincts and sharpening them and saying, "Hey, just something seemed different with this client. They mentioned this, and this, that their company is going through an acquisition," or something like that. And then you start picking up on things earlier, because you don't want to, as a freelancer, go in, keep on working on some big project if the client has become insolvent, for instance. I mean, the other thing that can be nerve-wracking is sometimes you can have a client who seems fine when you start working with them, and maybe they have a personality disorder or something where you start to see very erratic behavior. And I have learned that I don't want to work with people that have unhealthy behavior. So, here and there, maybe something is going on for them, right? Maybe something bad happened in their personal life. But if someone's consistently up and down or difficult or doesn't talk politely to you,
Yeah.
it's important to make a decision about what you will and won't put up with. Because for me, that's unhealthy. It lives in my head. I ruminate on it, and it takes away my energy from the clients who elevate me. And
Yeah.
the motto in my business is swim toward the light. It's my motto in my life now too, where am I swimming towards people that bring light into my life, towards projects, towards activities, towards things that bring light. There's a lot of darkness in the world, but I don't have to embrace it. I don't have to build my business around it. And part of that goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is building a financial base where if you start to feel like something is going south for whatever reason, we can't control everything. We can't control other people's behavior, but we can control our response to it only if we're prepared. Otherwise, we're kind of locked into this prison of like, I have to put up with this person who's calling me at
Mm.
midnight, because I have to pay the landlord, and
Yeah.
that's no way to live. That's not why we went into freelancing, but that the onus is on us to create the conditions where we can have our ideal clients. I mean, a lot is about that we read about is attracting our ideal clients, but it's not just that. It's also being able to say no to our non-ideal clients and realize, well, you know what, maybe they interact with me that way, but maybe with a different type of person, they wouldn't. And maybe it's just not a good fit. They're not a bad
Yeah.
person. They're just not a fit for me. Um, so that's another difficult part.
If your friend wanted to become a freelancer, what are top three things you'd advise them to consider before doing it?
Well, first of all, you need to think about how you're going to pay your bills. I think that's really important. It's kind of like with a restaurant. A
Mm.
restaurant may open in your community and you see it and you're like, oh, that looks really good. I think I'll go there next time I go out with my friends. You drive past it again, you see there's some people in it. And then you finally get around to going there and it closes because they didn't get enough business. They didn't give themselves enough runway. So the question for anyone who's thinking of leaving a job and becoming a freelancer is how do I give myself the runway to succeed? Because it's not going to happen overnight. You might not get any business for the first 3 to 6 months. It might be all output, putting out the word to everybody in your network, asking for advice on how to become a freelancer. There's a lot of legwork you have to do to let people know you're even freelancing. They may not know. And even if you put up one LinkedIn post, you might have to put up 50 before anyone knows you're a freelancer. There's also collateral you have to put out there, like updating your LinkedIn to say you're freelancing or other platforms that you're on, joining communities and things like that. So that takes time. So that's the one thing is how are you going to stay above water while you get started? Two is where can you have quick wins? Because there's nothing more discouraging than just plugging away, plugging away, plugging away, and getting no business, right? So you may have some skills that you could sell right away, and it might not be the ideal for you that you ultimately want to monetize, but getting some cash flowing, I think karmically is good. It just brings energy into your business. And then a lot of times potential clients will say, so what projects have you been working on lately? You can honestly tell them as opposed to, well, I haven't gotten any business yet. And if you're not getting any business, what I would say is volunteer. Like, for instance, if you're a business consultant, they have something, they have small business development centers in the United States. There's probably equivalents all over the world.
Mhm.
Volunteer for something where you can demonstrate your skills and get some case studies of results. So when people say, what are you working on lately? Well, I've been working with this business in my community to upgrade their web presence. You don't have to say it was unpaid. They're not asking what you're doing for pay lately. They're saying, what have you been working on lately? And you just want to demonstrate you have capabilities. And then the other thing is get out of your house because staying in your house and just locking yourself to your laptop will not grow your business. Go to events. There's a lot of free events for business owners. There are Zoom events. If for some reason, I realize not everybody can get out. There's a lot of reasons people can't leave their house. So
Yeah.
do it on Zoom, get an internet connection somehow and participate and let people see your face and ask a question or make a comment, follow up on LinkedIn, even if you couldn't participate, because sometimes on a LinkedIn event, on a Zoom event, you can. Write to the host or the moderator and just say you appreciate it and join their network. There's so much you can do. I mean, those three things I think will really help anybody get a running start.
You know, Elaine, I wish to have the sky's the limit, but time is the limit. So the final question. If you were starting freelancing today, what is one thing you would have done differently?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, I think I would have started out with more savings before I started, because when I started, I remember um, debating whether I should buy the big pack of diapers or the small, because the cost per diaper was different. I was under a lot of financial stress because I just dove into it head first. And I think it would have been a little easier to start with more savings, but I built them up and I learned the hard way, but I did learn over time that that was important. So I would say if you want to do this thing, it's a great thing. It gave me all the good things in my life, but you need to, no matter how creative you are and non-financial, you still need to master the financial side because it is a business. If you don't master that, you won't have the other things that you want.
Yeah, got it. Elaine, thank you so much for sharing your experience so openly and for having such a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Yuri. You asked great questions.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, hit the like button or 5 stars and share it with your friend. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.